Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and tonight we are going to discuss and continue my NFL draft coverage in my 2021 Mock Draft 1.0. So let's get started. And if you're new to joining us, thank you for tuning in. I know I picked up some subscribers from yesterday, late last night actually, into early this morning and late into this evening. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all the love that you guys have been showing me. The comments, I encourage all comments. I encourage all likes, dislikes. It doesn't matter. Any engagement is good from our algorithm. And it's all good because at the end of the day, we want to stir up a healthy debate and bring this community as one. And in order to do that, why not debate? Why not talk about and give your own analysis and your own soundboard and using the drop comment section to go ahead and watch a video, voice your concerns, voice your analysis, and let your voice be heard. Makes sense. I love it. I love engagement, and I try to respond to every one of you guys as to answering your questions and then also looking at it from your perspective on what you would do if you were the team's GM. So thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it, and let's get started. All right, so again, if you're new to following me, I break down my podcast in a bunch of different parameters as it pertains to the NFL Mock Draft 1.0. I like to include my mock drafts that I did earlier on, so I break it down in five pick episodes. So in my first mock draft, I have picks 1 through 5, and then I did a second podcast listing picks 6 through 10. I will go ahead and include that in the description below of this podcast. So you can go ahead and you can go and refer to that at the end of the video. I also included a podcast playlist at the end of the video, so you can go ahead and watch those podcasts in real time, and you can see what I was saying at the time that I said it. And that's why I include the my podcast playlist, is simply so you guys can see what I was thinking in real time, like I just said, and how it relates to today. Because everybody can say stuff in hindsight. I'm not about that, bro. Like, I like putting myself and putting my columnists on the line, making a strong stance and putting a strong stance out there, breaking down my analysts, trusting my analytics, and then my gut feeling, and then going that route, and then comparing it to what actually took place. If you're new to following me, again, thank you for tuning in, but that's how I like to do my business, and that's how I gain my followers. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, and my handle is BEASTwriter. And if you just Google search BEASTwriter, it should pop up Beast and like Sports Writer, just like the handle that you see on YouTube. On Twitter, it's BEASTwriter_. So go ahead, just make sure you look for the verified blue badge, and you're good to go. All right. So let's get started. Before we go into my mock draft, like I said, I do mock draft 1.0, and that's my first initial mock draft as it gets closer to the NFL Combine. Obviously, there's no NFL Combine, so all we have to go off is the Senior Bowl, so we do it around this time. I then run up a second mock draft as it gets closer to free agency. Once post-free agency and all those transactions are made as to top salary cap cuts, surprise cuts, trades, Deshaun Watson mainly, Matthew Stafford. A lot of quarterbacks can be considered moving parts and chess pieces in where they go and how that affects the draft board and draft position. That's going to be a different mock draft called 2.0, where after those moves are made, I'm like going like this, after those moves are made, because there's a lot going on obviously, and then run another mock draft, and then my third and final mock draft, similar to Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah, those guys, Bucky Brooks, I like to do a final mock draft just a few days leading up to the draft. I also provide my big board so you can see my ranked players 1 through 50, and that way you can kind of gauge on my scouting analysis as to who I thought was the best player and who I thought was the worst player. All right, now again, my mock draft is based on how I see the draft actually playing out, not what I would do or who I would pick if I was the team's GM. All right, so without further ado, that's why I formulate my mock draft game plan accordingly. But enough about the process, let's get started. All right. In the first round, the New York Giants, with the 11th pick overall, select, well, GM Dave Gettleman loves his hog mollies, right? So is he going to go offensive tackle? I don't think so. I'm going to the Dikembe Mutombo. No. And the reason I say that is because the top 2 offensive tackles are already off the board, but furthermore, they already drafted left tackle Andrew Thomas last year, number 4 overall. A surprise pick because a lot of people thought that Tristan Wirfs would go before Andrew Thomas. A lot of people thought that Jedrick Wills, who was a top-rated offensive tackle on many teams' boards that I spoke with, went to the Cleveland Browns a few picks later. I believe he went, I think it was number 10 or something like that, number 10 or 11. But yeah, when you take that, Mekhi Becton, went to the New York Jets. So a lot of these guys went after Andrew Thomas. I believe he was the first offensive tackle off the board, and it really shocked a lot of people. But hey, it was a move that he made, and ultimately, as it turns out, he's still a rookie. Yeah, he's still young, but you look at other players like Jedrick Wills, you look at guys like Tristan Wirfs, he's going to be playing in the Super Bowl. I think Dave Gettleman got it wrong. Now, will he go with another offensive tackle two years, back-to-back years? I don't think so. I think he's going to go best player available. You've seen him do it time and time again, especially with the first round. He drafted guys like Christian McCaffrey at number 8. He drafted guys like Saquon Barkley, I believe, at number 2. And he drafted guys like Daniel Jones, which was a reach, at number 6. He drafted Dexter Lawrence again at number 17. So his time with the New York Giants is kind of, for the most part, I would say in the first round, pretty stable. He made some solid picks, and he has some decisions to make. Another big decision is, what does he do with Leonard Williams? He gave him the franchise tag. The guy balled out. I believe he had 11 and a half or 13 sacks, something crazy like that. He had double-digit sacks, and in a contract year, they made the move to trade him as a mid-season offseason, as a mid-season trade from the New York Jets last year, and in a contract year, gave him the franchise tag, and then he balled out of control. So there's a lot of decisions that Dave Gettleman is going to have to make. Now, when you look at it from GM Dave Gettleman's standpoint, you have no choice but to look at the wide receiver position, because anytime you have a young quarterback like a Daniel Jones, you already picked up your blindside left tackle in Andrew Thomas. You're going to need to surround him with offensive weapons, and right now they don't have very many. Yeah, you can say they have Sterling Shepard, and I love Sterling Shepard coming out of Oklahoma, but let's face it, he's not very durable. He's been injury prone. In fact, I would argue that Sterling Shepard, although he's good when healthy, can be a liability when you think about it and break it down. I mean, he had a groin injury in college, he had a turf toe, he has a rib injury. So when you take that all into account, and then you look at how many years that he's been in the league, which is 5, of those 5 years, he's only been able to play a full 16-game schedule. How many times? Twice. And when you take that, again, let's peel back another layer of the onion to get to the core. Let's stay on that wide receiver unit. Let's take a look at guys like wide receiver Golden Tate. Golden Tate could be a cap casualty. And the reason I say it could be a cap casualty is because the New York Giants need salary cap health. And if you can cut Golden Tate and save $6.1 million in cap savings, that's a decision that Dave Gettleman will likely make, because sitting there at number 11, you don't get a guy like Devontae Smith, you don't get a guy like Jamar Chase, because those guys are already off the board in the previous podcast, and you can watch that podcast, which I included in the pinned post below. But you still have a guy by the name of Jalen Waddle. Again, the wide receiver unit in this draft class is similar to the one last year in terms that it's the cream of the crop. There are a lot of solid wide receivers, and Jalen Waddle, even though he had a fractured foot in that Tennessee game on the opening kickoff and didn't play until the national championship game to show scouts and GMs that he has heart, he has a passion for the game, he's tough, and he's a team first player, he is a guy that I believe that Dave Gettleman will take a risk on, because at the end of the day, he's the BPA, best player available. And when you look at the wide receiver unit, and you take a look at, man, okay, Sterling Shepard, baller, man, but can he stay healthy? I don't know, so that's a question mark. Oh, Golden Tate, veteran wide receiver, man, good for that wide receiver unit, but damn, we need salary cap health, and we save $6.1 million by cutting him. And then you take it a step further and be like, oh man, Darius Slayton balling out as a 5th round pick, but at best, he's a wide receiver 2. At best. I need to give Daniel Jones a wide receiver 1 in a pass-happy NFL, because the NFL is a transcending pass-happy league. All the rules are favoring the offense. It's obvious. All the rules are also favoring mobile quarterbacks. It's obvious. Why not go with the Joneses and keep up with the Joneses and draft that explosive wide receiver one between the 20s who can separate down the field, take the top off the defense, putting that safety or that single high safety or those two safeties to a decision and covering their deep thirds, deep halves, or if they're sitting single high safety, putting him to a decision on whether to take the tight end or rollover coverage to the boundary cornerback. These are decisions that have to be made, and I believe Dave Gettleman will make the right one in making Jalen Waddle the selection. So at number 11, Jalen Waddle. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the San Francisco 49ers. What are they going to do? Where do they go from here? At number 12, if it was me, again, I'm making this mock draft as I see it actually playing out, but if I was San Francisco 49ers GM John Lynch and I was unable to trade down or trade up for a quarterback because I'm not able to get, let's say, Matthew Stafford, who may come to San Francisco and we may not even be making this pick at this point, what do you do? Well, if Stafford doesn't come to San Francisco, he goes to another team and they hold the number 12 overall pick. The likely scenario obviously would be to stockpile more picks, trade out of this pick and get more selections. If you watch my earlier podcast, I would have loved to have quarterback Patrick Surtain sitting there, but he's gone. And you can see that in the description below. I have it in the pinned post on those mock drafts. And he's long gone. Long gone. And keep pounding, little hint for you, is benefiting from it. What happens? What does GM John Lynch do from here? I would have gone after running back Najee Harris. But then again, I'm a Bama fan. I like the Antioch kid. Watched him since high school. Bay Area product. Let's keep him in the Bay. And I don't know why he is not ranked higher on many people's big boards. He is a baller ever since high school. Like, the guy's just a baller and he's just a winner. Like, how can you not pick Najee Harris? The 49ers have a stable of running backs that they can win with because it's Kyle Shanahan's offense. But when you put in a guy like Najee Harris in that system, he will just exponentially make that offense a juggernaut. Plain and simple. Now, on the flip side of that, you can be like, well, running back's not a position of need because we have Jeff Wilson, we have guys like Raheem Mostert, and we can win with those running backs. Sure, but can those running backs stay healthy for a full 16-game schedule? Same concept with Sterling Shepard. It's all about durability in the NFL. The best availability is durability, and if you're not durable, what's the point? And this is not a knock on those players. I'm not knocking on any of those players. I'm just keeping it 100 because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And you look at the past behavior, all signs dictate toward these 49ers running backs not staying healthy, even if it's by a committee approach. And when you put in a guy like Najee Harris, okay, you guys don't like Najee Harris? Travis Etienne from Clemson, okay? Pick your poison, okay? When you put a guy like that into that offense and those outside zone runs, inside zone runs, and then opens up the passing game down the seams for George Kittle, and then these wide receivers can do their gadget plays with the reverses, bubble screens, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. That is a nightmare for any defensive coordinator. But with that being said, I don't think they're going to go running back. Again, this is not what I would do. This is what GM John Lynch is likely going to do. And it's interesting because my draft crush last year was wide receiver Justin Jefferson. If you watch my earlier podcast, when I first started this BEASTwriter podcast, I said that Justin Jefferson should have been the perfect trade down scenario for the 49ers in the early to late teens. And everyone was knocking me on it, and now those same people who were trying to knock me on it are like, man, you were right. Yeah, no crap. And that's why Justin Jefferson is doing so well, because of the fact that he was a guy that can get open. He was the guy that can find soft spots in zone coverage. I see what people were saying because he was playing in that offense. The same argument could also be said of Najee Harris behind that offensive line. But then again, they both play in the SEC. Like, what you think, bro? Like, the SEC is the best football conference in all of football. Like, you don't think there's going to be first-round talent across the board on both sides of the football? You're dumb. There's a reason why they go to national championships every damn year. It's just ridiculous how people can knock a player because of the talent around him. And then you look at a small school kid, you can make the same argument. Well, I mean, the kid looks outstanding, but then again, is he going against FBS talent? And then how does that talent project? So you can play both sides of the fence. At the end of the day, if the player gets it done on film, he gets it done on film. Plain and simple. But enough about that. Obviously, Najee Harris is my draft crush if you kept up with Twitter. But in my mock draft, again, this is how I actually see it playing out. The 49ers drafted for need back in 2018 with right tackle Mike McGlinchey. They did it again to ease the blow of losing DeForest Buckner by drafting Javon Kinlaw. This is not a knock on either one of those players. I believe that Kinlaw has Pro Bowl potential. However, the flaws in his game obviously are similar to what we saw in his rookie year. You see flashes, but then oftentimes he has mental lapses. And my right tackle Mike McGlinchey, I mean, you can just turn on the film and I'm not even going to talk about what's going on with him. I still think Mike McGlinchey is going to be a solid pro in the NFL. He's still young, he's very smart and savvy, so he had one bad year. Players have bad years all the time. Let's see how he bounces back in another season under his belt, especially coming off probably his worst year of his young NFL career. All right, so in my opinion, they reached for both those players. For whatever reason, John Lynch reached for them. Okay, they should have drafted Tristan Wirfs, which I stated in that podcast, and now people are like, "Oh, yeah, you're right. They should." That's why you follow me. But anyways, I see that trend continuing at pick number 12. You have unrestricted free agents like Jason Verrett coming up. Richard Sherman admitted that he's not coming back, and I included that in the podcast below. Called that out long before he even said that. But anyways, this is why you follow me, because I point this stuff out in real time, and then months down the road, it's like these things are coming to fruition. So the cornerback position is absolutely depleted. They don't have Jason Verrett. He's an unrestricted free agent. We don't know if he's returning. And then you have, again, Richard Sherman coming off. He's likely gone. So the need is there. An immediate upgrade would be to take the best cornerback on their horizontal board. And that best cornerback on their horizontal board, after Patrick Surtain is off, on their board, not my board, because I have another cornerback that's ranked number 2. But I think on their board, I see them drafting Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech. And we all know how those Virginia Techs do. Those Virginia Tech Hokies do. As first-round picks with the San Francisco 49ers, Jim Druckenmiller was one of them. And, yeah, we all remember what happened to that. But, yeah, make no mistake, this is a needs-based pick. I see Caleb Farley being the pick if they're unable to trade out of this position. Everybody would love to see, or I shouldn't say everybody, I would love to see them draft a running back, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, and then go best player available based on their vertical board. However, I think they're going to go off their horizontal board and take that player, which is Caleb Farley, because they have a bunch of needs at cornerback. All right, so he'll be the pick. Then we look at the Chargers' first-round pick, number 13 overall. You look at GM Tom Telesco and what he's did since, and what he's done since becoming the team's GM back in 2013. His first year on the job, what did he do? Drafted DJ Fluker out of Alabama. What did he like about DJ Fluker's game? He fell in love with his measurables. The dude was 339 pounds, 6'5", 6'7", something like that. I think it was like 6'5", 339 pounds, something like that. The guy was a monster. And they loved his ability in space. They loved his quick feet for a guy his size. They loved all these intangibles that the guy brought to the table. And coming from Alabama, going up against first-round talent, coming out of the SEC, they really loved the traits that they thought that they could coach him up at the next level. However, that we all know what happened. That didn't pan out, and DJ Fluker was gone within a few years. But fast forward to 2021, I see the same scenario playing out. Lightning strikes again. Get it? Bolts up, lightning strikes again. Okay. He does it again with Virginia Tech, Christian Darrisaw. D-Saw is a player who mirrors exactly what DJ Fluker possesses. I think GM Tom Telesco strikes twice and makes the same pick. I like D-Saw a lot more so than DJ Fluker, to be honest with you. But again, this is a GM who fell in love with Fluker's measurables, right? Lightning strikes twice. I'm not going to be surprised if it does, because GM Tom Telesco loves those big guys. He loves those big offensive tackles. And obviously, if you're GM Tom Telesco and you're wanting to protect your prize investment in Justin Herbert, you're going to need to give him some bodyguards. And so look for Christian Darrisaw to be that guy. Now, I will be, maybe because I'm a Bama fan, but no, I really think they're torn between two guys right now. All right, depending on what they do in free agency, it's going to be between Desaw, who I just mentioned, and Christian Barmore from Alabama. And Christian Barmore would fill a need while being the best player available on their vertical board. In fact, I would have Christian Barmore ahead of Desaw. Christian Barmore to me is a standard 3 tech that can play in a 3-4 or 4-3 base. He is a gap penetrator. He can 2 gap, 1 gap, whatever the case may be. He's also able to stack and shed at the point of attack, and if he's unable to make a sound pass rush, he always clogs up those passing windows by getting his hand up in the air to bat passes at the line of scrimmage. These are things that you rarely need to be coached up at the next level, because at teams like Alabama, who are very well coached up in the SEC, teams that are very well coached up like LSU, you take into account even, to play in the SEC. I mean, Ohio State, for instance, right? So all these coaching staffs that have, a lot of them, former NFL coaches that come back down to the college ranks and have NFL experience under the belt, they know how to coach up their players in order to put them in the best position to make plays. And to me, Christian Barmore is a guy who's flying under the radar, and as it gets closer to the draft, I would see him in the top 25 on Mel Kiper's big board. I don't believe that as of right now he is on Mel Kiper's top 25 big board, but according to my big board, he's definitely in my top 25. And he's going to be climbing from there, because I watched all Alabama games. Again, for those who don't know or are new to follow me, I watch all college football games on top of my NFL Sunday games, because I run game grades for my Pro Football Writers Association all pro teams at the end of the year. So I formulate my own game grading system, my own NFL game grading system, and that's all up on Twitter. I also posted some stuff on YouTube for you guys. But yeah, getting back to Christian Barmore, look for him to be a piece to the puzzle if Tom Telesco decides to go on the defense side of the ball. However we make the pick, Desaw's the choice. All right, now let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings in the first round, pick number 14. Mel Kiper currently has Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC, and based on my analytics, all signs point to defensive tackle Christian Barmore. Again, I just pointed out his skill set. I think that GM Rick Spielman loves that skill set. He covets players coming into the SEC. He likes big guys. He's going to need to replace guys like Linval Joseph. He's going to need guys to replace Everson Griffin was shipped off, or released, or whatever the case may be. He's no longer with the team. So you guys get the picture. The D-line is not the same as it once was. Obviously, they made a trade for Yannick Ngakoue, and they traded him to the Baltimore Ravens. So the defensive line is definitely a point of emphasis, what I like to call POE, because at the end of the day, games are won down in the trenches, and Rick Spielman understands that. And if you look at what he has done since he became the team's GM, you will know that Rick Spielman is a guy that loves to draft from the inside out, not necessarily the outside in, especially in the first round. He took guys like Matt Khalil out of USC, right? So there's a lot of ties to USC offensive tackles in Rick Spielman, because he struck twice now if he makes this Elijah Vera Tucker pick. But then you take it and peel back another layer of the onion to get to the core, and let's just run down the list, right? So I keep track of everything, right? And I make notes of everything. What's going on here? Got stuck there. Let's make notes of everything, right? So let's take a look at what's actually going on, right? So if you look at what he has done, he drafted Harrison Smith after that, Sharif Floyd out of Florida, SEC product. He drafted Xavier Rhodes out of Tennessee, Anthony Barr, UCLA, Trey Waynes, Teddy Bridgewater, Laquan Treadwell out of Ole Miss, Mike Hughes out of UCF, that was a surprise pick, Garrett Bradbury at NC State, Justin Jefferson, and most notably Jeff Gladney out of TCU. So when you take all that and put it into an analytics standpoint, and then to break it down as to what he would do moving forward based on, at that time, what the roster needs were, because what they did and what they didn't do in free agency, who they were thinking about bringing in, who they signed, who they didn't sign, how much money did they give and allocate to these players at the positions of needs. A lot to talk about, and that's why I think Christian Barmore is going to be the guy for the Minnesota Vikings. So he's their pick. Now let's move on to the last pick in this episode. Number 15, the New England Patriots. Well, we all know Cam Newton is going to be all but gone in New England. I think Bill Belichick is probably upset right now as we speak, as he's gearing up for the Super Bowl, his first Super Bowl without his GOAT, Tom Brady. and it's going to be a storyline as to who was more important during their tenure in New England. Was it Tom Brady or Bill Belichick? Well, if Tom Brady wins this one in his first year going away from Bill Belichick, I think that's a good argument that Tom Brady is more important. But then coming from a coach's perspective, being a coach myself, I'm always saying, well, it's our job because we put the players in the best position to make plays. But then again, you're talking about Tom Brady. So if I were to choose, I would say if Tom Brady wins this one, which I expect him to do, that's my prediction. I think New England Patriots. Gosh, Tom Brady's been with the New England Patriots so long that I still think of him as the New England Patriots. I think TB12 and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to take home the Lombardi Trophy this year in their hometown. First time ever. He makes history again. This guy is an ageless wonder. He's 43 years old. He can play till he's 50. I'm joking, but damn, that guy is amazing. That guy's just amazing. Greatest of all time for sure. But getting back to what the New England Patriots are going to do, they're going to need a quarterback. Let's talk about quarterback. So I look for that player to be Mac Jones. And Mac Jones is going to get a lot of high praise. You know, we all know about how he hurt his foot today at the Senior Bowl. Probably won't be playing in the Senior Bowl on Saturday, but what we do, or Sunday, whenever the game is played. But what we do know is Mac Jones is deadly accurate in all three levels. And you can say what you want again about the offensive line, about the running game, about the wide receivers he had. But again, he plays in the SEC. You can make a strong case of that about Joe Burrow. He had Thaddeus Moss at LSU. He had Clyde Edwards-Helaire as his running back. He had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase as his wide receivers. You could argue that unit, those players that I just mentioned, as a whole was better than the Alabama kids this year. And then you talk about that offensive line, right? So it's really interesting when I hear that, Mac Jones had the best offensive line in the NFL, or NFL talent along the offensive line, best offensive line in college football with Landon Dickerson, Alex Leatherwood, Deontay Brown. That's why he was so accurate. No. Was he the one? Were those offensive linemen the one that was freaking extending plays inside the pocket, climbing up the pocket, standing tall in the pocket, making throws deep downfield, throwing to the receiver in stride? No, it was Mac Jones. So I hate when people, I hate's a strong word, but I really do. I hate it when people say that and knock people because of this talent around them. It's not their fault who they play with. They can't be like, I got Najee Harris as my running back. That sucks, bro. Like, can we just put in someone else? Like, give me the backup of the backup. The practice. Get that walk on right there. That guy, literally the guy that just walked on. Let me get him as my running back because people are telling me that I can't get it done. No, that's not how it works, bro. This is not how it works. This is dumb. Anyways, enough of the rant. I think that Bill Belichick's going to trust his buddy Nick Saban's input and draft Mac Jones as his quarterback of the future. All right. Well, that'll be it for today and tonight. I hope you liked my podcast. If you did, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as I keep all things beast. Also, I included chapters so you can fast forward to the actual pick, and then please start the discussion in the drop your comments in the section below, and let's go ahead and have a healthy debate, because at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for, is a healthy debate and to talk football and to build up the BEASTwriter community. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night. I'll be posting my picks 16 through 20 tomorrow. BEASTwriter out.